Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a motorcycle racing TV show, Team Chicago Challenge. My email is teamdan45@gmail.com. My website is teamchicago.tv. Well, I was driving through Glenview, Illinois the other day, and I went by this Hindu temple that is, well, I guess 15 years old now, but at that location was a huge warehouse building that was owned by Lee Hartung. Lee passed away in 2011, and they had an auction for all the stuff he had, and like I've said, one man's junk is another man's treasure, because the auction was very successful. What he had in that pole barn was very, very valuable when he put it all together. And lucky for me, well, Phil Young's the one that let me know about this auction, and we went together and he helped me shoot some of it. I ran into my old friend Tiger Lady, but most importantly, I ran into the late great Dale Walksler, the owner of Wheels Through Time Motorcycle Museum. I've known Dale ever since he had his museum down in Mount Vernon, Illinois. Then he moved to Maggie Valley, and Dale was there, and he was a great help as we looked at these various motorcycles. What a collection. So let's check out what took place in 2011. Don't forget my email is teamdan45@gmail.com, and I love to hear from your comments on this show that I put together. And I have to always got to thank my late great friend Dale Walksler. He was always a good friend, whether he was racing at Wassian, when he invited me to his museum a couple of times, even going back to his little museum behind the Harley shop in Mount Vernon, Illinois.
Lee Hartung had a lot of stuff. Here's some pedal cars. Now they grouped them together, put them on skids, and that's how the bidding will be for this auction. How about a bicycle built for four, a bicycle with a trailer, little sprint cars. Lee collected a lot of stuff, but inside he had some really beautiful motorcycles. Really, really nice motorcycles. From the pre-teens to teens into the 20s. And I had a chance to talk to Dale Walksler from Wheels Through Time Motorcycle Museum, and Dale's going to tell us about these bikes.
You know, I learned a lot from Lee Hartung. I met Lee in the mid-'80s, and many years in my life we would talk literally hundreds of hours on the telephone per year. I used to come visit Lee at least once a year, and truly one of my mentors in collecting and really in developing what we call the Wheels Through Time Museum, the really great collection of all-American motorcycles. And I think it was very instrumental in the early days of making my collection the all-American collection, and looking around this building, and so we got a lot of America right here.
Now, did you ever swap any bikes with him, or?
You know, actually, a lot of people have said, oh, nobody ever sold anything to Lee or traded with Lee. And as a matter of fact, over the years, Lee and I did a few transactions together. Probably the most notable would be the somewhere in the late 80s, he had a chain drive Mack truck in the old building, and he traded the chain drive Mack truck for a brand new Ford pickup truck, which he didn't want. So I offered to buy the pickup truck from Lee, and we finessed that negotiation. Interesting sidebar to that, I think the truck was $10,000. Lee said no problem on the $10,000, but you got to pay me in $10 bills. So, you know, my relationship with Lee Hartung has been a really great relationship for many, many years. Truly an honor to be here and be involved in what is going on. I know there's been a lot of various contradiction and people understanding what this is all about, but really in light of where the stuff was at, where it was sitting, this is probably the best thing that can happen to Lee Hartung's collection. I certainly hope that the people that buy these items have as much respect for them as I do, and although some will change hands again and again and again, I think there's going to be some people here that will cherish what Lee collected, take good care of it, pass it on for future generations, and I think Lee would be proud.
Lee definitely had a lot of stuff. Here's some model cars, a good number of model cars all assembled. Again, you can see how they're sorting them out by lots. That's how the bidding's gonna be. And then outside, he's got some real cars. He's got cars from the 30s. He's got a race jalopy, a Crosby, a good number of cars. And we're gonna go back and talk to Dale as he talks about Lee's Upside Down 4, a 1936 Indian.
I was looking in Lee's scrapbook the other day, and that was truly an honor to be able to check out Lee's early photographs. And there's a photograph of Lee with this motorcycle in 1953. So it would be really one of the first bikes that Lee, I think, collected. Lee's first bike that he really rode a lot was the 14 Harley when he was a teenager. But in 1953, Lee put this bike in his collection, rode it for many years, and it's a 1936 four-cylinder Indian. It's what's called the Upside Down 4. So the man kept this machine for over 60 years, and as a matter of fact, just adding a little gasoline and battery ignition, a little battery, this bike fired right up.
There's a very unique car in Lee's collection. It's a BMW prototype sports car, a two-seater from the early 50s, a one-off copy. I wonder what this is going to go for in the bidding. And now we're going to talk to Dale again as he talks about the fire department Henderson motorcycle.
Probably Lee's favorite motorcycle, one he was most proud of, is the 1926 Henderson Deluxe, the Glenview Fire Department bike, done in red. And of course, this machine sat on the ground for many, many years. Lee often told me he used to start and run and ride this bike, which I certainly believe. The real testament to that was when the bike came out of the building, I added some gasoline to it, checked the plugs, put a little oil in the cylinders. The bike fired right up. Tires are good. Transmission works great. Runs and drives. Pretty amazing motorcycle.
Here's another car outside you won't see very often in the States. I believe this is a British-built Sunbeam automobile from the 30s. Now, is this the same Sunbeam that built the motorcycles, or had BSA build the motorcycles, the inline twin? I don't know. Also, a 58 Cadillac Hearst, and I believe a 58 or 59 Esso right next to it. And now Dale is going to tell us about this 1913 Thor motorcycle with a sidecar. A real unique piece.
You know, another Illinois bike in Lee's collection is the Thor motorcycle, made in Aurora, Illinois. The Harley family built the Thor motorcycle in Aurora. It was called the Thor Power Tool Company. In the earliest days, the Thor company was contracted by Indian, let's say 1901 to 1905, to actually, they built all of the Indian engines for the Hendy Manufacturing Company in Springfield, Massachusetts. So the Thor company has a huge amount of provenance. This motorcycle is actually kind of a mystery bike. Some of my experts, friends that have come to look at this bike, I fell in love with this one. We kind of looked it over very carefully, and we decided there's a lot of things that don't necessarily fit or look right. However, the overall condition, looking mainly original, indicates to me that this could actually be some type of prototype of some sort, or miscellaneous Thor parts from the factory, built at the factory as a mock-up for upcoming models. So it's really the mystery bike of the auction, the V-twin Thor, magneto ignition with a sidecar. I love this bike.
And now we're outside taking a look at a few more skids, a few more groups of this auction. There's an 8-cylinder straight 8. Maybe it's a Buick engine. A couple airplane engines, aircraft engines. You got a opposing 4. And I believe that's a 7-cylinder radio engine. Also, there's some outboard engines. We're going to go back to talk to Dale as he tells us about 1926 Henderson.
You know, Lee Hartung, born right here in the Chicago area, actually collected all of this stuff over a 60-year period, and actually almost everything you see in the building, outside the building, and in the pole barn, Lee found within 15 miles of where we're standing. It's really one of the most amazing stories in the world. Lee loved motorcycles. He really liked dogs, but that's another story. But some of the bikes Lee collected have a lot of Chicago provenance. The Henderson Company, of course, being on Cortlandt Street in Chicago, was certainly a favorite of Chicagoans in their daily use. And collecting Hendersons in Lee's day was probably something that came quite naturally. The bike I'm next to here is a 1926 Henderson. It's called a deluxe model. This machine was sitting in the building for about 40 years. I actually helped take this machine down off of the shelf, rolled it out, lubed up these cylinders, and added some gas. The bike fired right up.
Lee Hartung had a lot of stuff. Comic books, paraphernalia from the police department, wanted posters, looking at some Japanese motorcycles that he collected, and some old bikes. We also ran into Chris Tiger Lady at this auction. Chris was with me on the radio, Open Road Radio, and she is a moto journalist. So let's go to Chris right now.
I'm Chris Tiger Lady, and Dan and I have been friends since the beginning of Open Road Radio. He helped us found it way back, I don't know when. I am here at Lee Hartung's museum checking out the what do they call it, the pre-auction event, and it's been extremely interesting.
Well, Chris, I never came here. I've heard about this collection he had. I understand everything we see here was in one building.
Yes.
So when you went and visited him in that one building, how much did you really get to see? Did he have the bikes separate that you could at least see something?
No, the building that this stuff was in is quite huge, and stuff was just piled up to the ceiling, hanging from the ceiling, hanging from the walls. He had cars that had, like if you can imagine, just stuff piled on the hoods of cars up like 10, 15, 20 feet sometimes.
So this is the stuff that he collected and kept,
Yep.
and he would share it with a few select friends once in a while.
Well, he had the museum open on Saturdays and Sundays, I believe, at some point. I think like the last 10, 15 years or so. And it was free to the public. But, if he was not in the mood, he would just close down for the day, or he'd tell you, not open, go away. And it was, you paid a small, if you wanted to make a contribution, you could to.
Well, I know he was well known for all the license plates. There's, thousands of license plates here.
Right.
But did you know he had the trains and the toys and...
No.
Are you amazed? Are you shocked by how much was in that building now that you see it spread out?
Yeah. I mean, I went through, walking through the, so there's stuff in this building, there's stuff in the original building, and stuff spread out all over the grass and whatnot. And everything came out of that one building. And Bonnie told me it took a month to empty the building out. So it is really amazing the extent of his stuff. I mean, he had typewriters, old dolls, lamps, oil paintings. I mean, and apparently he started out as an automotive collector. So he just, I guess, couldn't stop himself at some point. Had to have it all.
Lee had a lot of stuff. Here's a couple wagon wheels, 4 of them, a taillight, it looks like, for a Pontiac car. We're also going to lose some toy trucks. And I'm going to catch up with Dale again, and we're going to talk about the Flying Merkel.
The Flying Merkel to my left was certainly a bike that Lee was very proud of, but at the same point, this bike caused Lee a huge amount of agony and grief for everybody that walked into Lee's building. Always said, "What do you want for the Merkel?" And that really kind of infuriated Lee, because there's so much more to look at in Lee's collection than a Flying Merkel. So the amount of time that people spent trying to pry this motorcycle out of Lee caused him a lot of angst in his life. It was actually sitting on the upstairs shelf with about 7 other rare motorcycles, and the Flying Merkel, made in Middletown, Ohio, truly one of the milestone marks in America. The ball bearing engine, the beautiful orange paint with the great Flying Merkel decal. Really a great bike.
Yes, it is a lovely looking motorcycle. Dale said there was about 10 motorcycles in this collection, each one worth $100,000 each. As you look at the tent where some of the more valuable items were put, and this is the auction area. This is where the auction was going to take place. Motorcycles and motorcycle related stuff was being auctioned off on one day. Automobiles and automobile stuff was going to be auctioned off on another day. I'm going to talk to Dale now about this 1912 Harley.
Lee's 1912 Harley has been the envy of many people here at the auction. It still has the original belt for its belt drive system, the original gray paint, of course, the 12 Harley, known as the Silent Gray Fellow. is certainly a favorite. It's going to be interesting to see how many people bid on the 1912 Harley. I might also, Matt, add that with a little bit of gasoline and an auxiliary battery, this bike fired up in about a half a pedal, and a real testament to what Lee always said, and that is, I wrote everything into that building.
Now let me ask you a question here. The original paint, what is the value there when it's original, not restored? Is it more valuable? Is it?
Well, I think a lot of the people here realize that Lee didn't restore anything. In fact, what Lee always said is, I don't restore anything, I just store it. And the fact that Lee kept all of these machines in original condition is certainly a testament to that statement. Very interestingly, you know, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, a lot of people would have taken this nice original paint Harley Davidson and restored it to make it in like new condition. Although, as we well know today in the world of preservation, original paint machines certainly have a lot more appeal. It's only original ones.
Here's a BSA single, a war surplus BSA. There was a good number of those about these and 50s. Here's a nice Wizard. Hartag had a collection of many, many vehicles, and when the auction was done, it took in $4 million. So every one of these items that he saved do have a great value to them. So now we're going to talk to Dale as he tells us about this Pope motorcycle.
You know, how a Pope made in Westfield, Massachusetts made it into Lee's barn has always amazed me. However, he did tell me the story on where he found it and how he found it. The bike was actually in a closet in Chicago, and it was sitting vertically in the closet for storage purposes. The machine itself, we think it's around a 12 or a 13 Pope, not exactly sure of exactly what year, but in incredible original condition. You might note the seat has got Pope embossed in the seat, as well as the handlebar mounted toolbox. Truly a magnificent original bike. And by the way, added some gas to this one, it runs like brand new.
And now let's take a closer look at this single-cylinder motorcycle, this Pope motorcycle. What a wonderful piece, well preserved, just like it was 100 years ago. 100 years ago, this represents a motorcycle. Like Dale said, it's either a 1912 or a 1913. What a beautiful restored motorcycle. Another one of the motorcycles that are valued at over $100,000. As we look around at some of the other items at Hartag's garage, his auction, motorcycle engines, a big selection, plenty of stuff, pins, posters, motorcycle related. Now we're looking at a few scooters. Got a Cushman Eagle in the background. Again, this is part of the Hartag collection in Glenview, Illinois. Lee Hartag died. His girlfriend authorized this auction. We see a couple motorcycle sidecars and a good selection of cars. Here's a motorcycle, I believe, shop. All this was in one building. And now Dale is going to tell us about another one of the bikes in the collection as we look at buttered popcorn and or peanuts for 5 cents. A peanut wagon inside Hartag's garage.
You know, I'd been coming to Lee's for about 30 years, and I was always enamored with the early Wagner motorcycle. It had a little sign on the front that said 1901 wooden wheel Wagner, and I had always assumed that's what it was. So when the bike came off the shelf and we rolled it out, I was probably a little over-exuberant in understanding exactly what this bike is. So what's come to light today is it's not a 1901 Wagner. It's actually a combination of a couple different things. We're not exactly sure what it is, but the fact of the matter that the condition, overall condition of the machine shows a lot of originality. It's also a great testament that Lee could fool anybody.
And as we look through more of the Hartag collection, we got aviation photos, a photo of the Blue Angels, a picture of Charles Lindbergh, some more police photos, some sports memorabilia, and another selection of pins. And now Dale is going to tell us about this motorcycle you could have bought from the Sears catalog.
Another Chicago product, the Sears motorcycle, built right here in Chicago. It's kind of a component-built bike. It used what is called a Spacky engine, offered through the Sears catalog, I believe from 1911 to 1914. It's a chain drive model. It's completely original paint. Totally amazing. A machine like this could survive for this many years. Now, I did not try to start or run this motorcycle, although I do believe within an hour, maybe 2 hours max, this bike would be in operational condition. One of the things that keeps an old bike like this from being started is the fact you have to pedal start it to make it run. And with the condition of the tires being flat, you're unable to do the pedal start. Therefore, trying to start the bike would cause more damage than it would good. So we'll leave it up to the next owner, possibly change the tires and make it run. Whoever owns this bike next may very well leave it in its original as-found condition with the old tires on it. You know, I like things that run. Other people like other things. If it was my bike and my choice, I'd have a set of period original tires on the bike and run it and drive it when it felt like it.
Now here's posters from the 20s and the 30s through the 50s. Now Dale's going to tell us about a steam-powered motorcycle not found in Hartag's garage, brought in especially for this fitting, but one of the American classics.
Hi, Dale Walksler from the Wheels Through Time Museum. We're here at the RM auction in Glenview, Illinois, the collection of Lee Hartung. And on preview at this auction is yet another motorcycle of extremely rare provenance, maybe one of the rarest bikes in the world, and that's the machine of Sylvester Roper. And of course, Sylvester Roper is claimed to be the inventor of the motorcycle, and truly that would be the case. This particular machine is Sylvester Roper's second and last motorcycle. It is steam-powered, coal-fired. And you'll notice how an antiquity this motorcycle actually is. And looking around the bike, you can see that its provenance is actual. The crankshaft and all the components are correct and original, as Mr. Roper built in, I believe, 1894. So the machine itself technically is really America's second motorcycle. Here's an interesting story. In 1894, Sylvester Roper was testing and riding his motorcycle, whereupon he had a heart attack while he was riding the motorcycle. When the bike came to the screeching halt with him underneath it, he was found dead. And the history of Sylvester Roper, very well documented. Now, the original Roper motorcycle, steam motorcycle, is in the Smithsonian Institution in New York. This machine is privately owned and will be sold at the RM auction in Las Vegas.
So this wasn't in this collection here. This is something brought in for this auction.
Yeah, this is brought in as a teaser for the auction in Las Vegas, Nevada in January of 1900.
So we were going to talking about that steam motorcycle that was in the Art of the Motorcycle exhibit. There was a steam-powered, built in 1860 something.
That would be the first Sylvester Roper motorcycle.
Right,
that is
right.
Correct.
Okay, and that's in the Smithsonian now.
That's currently in the Smithsonian.
So this would have been the second American-made.
This is the second American.
So he could have been making this in the 1880s, maybe, or.
No, I don't remember the history exactly. I haven't written down, but I haven't.
But show me how this shaft works. So this is the piston here.
Yeah, your piston is steam powered, so your steam comes in from the top, and this is actually an adjustment for throttle. Basically, it allows the various amounts of steam to be let off. So if you open this up, it lets off less steam. When you let off less steam, the steam's got to go somewhere, which goes through this device to the piston. So as the steam goes into the piston and fires that, and what that does is it articulates the crankshaft, which is actually part of the back wheel.
Wow. Engineering feat. And it even looks like a real motor. It even looks like a Harley Davidson gas tank on there.
You know, his claim, we claim that this being the first motorcycle, and looking at the overall construction, certainly would be true.
Thank you, Dale. And let me add, when the Art of Motorcycle exhibit came to the Field Museum in the late 1990s, I spotted the Show Perot steam-powered bicycle. This was before the creation of rubber tires. So we see wood and steel wheels. Got a steam boiler. A newspaper article
in 1871 stated that this show parole went 19 miles per hour. It was originally built in 1868. It was great to see that there was steam-powered two-wheel vehicles. Then at the Claremont Collection in Chicago, I spotted the Roper 1867 steam-powered motorcycle. You can see the two steam cylinders and the push rods driving the external flywheel on the rear wheel. You can see that the wheels are wooden. They got steel tires. You could see the boiler and the wooden frame. The seat held water for the boiler. This is a replica, 1867 Sylvester Roper, the first ever motorcycle. Think of that. Only 2 years after the Civil War, Sylvester Roper built a steam-powered vehicle. He was a great inventor, but not a great promoter. He did not have any contracts to sell what he made. This one here was timed on a velodrome in 1894 at 40 miles per hour, but he died on the velodrome, but he shut off the steam before he died. He went 40 miles per hour. Special thanks to the late great Dale Walksler, Wheels Through Time Museum, a great friend. And thanks to Chris Tiger Lady and Phil Young helping me with the video production. I learned quite a bit at the Hartung auction. Dale was a great teacher. Contact me, and I'd love to hear from my audience. It's teamdan45@gmail.com. Remember, you can always search on YouTube with Dan Schmitt Motorcycle Racing for great motorcycle racing action. Dan Schmitt Politics to learn what makes America great. I highly encourage you to visit the World of Motorcycle Museum. They're in Winamac, Indiana, 4 miles south of North Judson on Indiana Highway 39. It's a great trip, a great collection of motorcycles, but give them a call first at 574-896-3172, and you pick up your Harley Davidsons and Yamahas at Kirstein Cycle. If you want to pick up your copy of the Team Chicago History Package, go to Rich's Yamaha in Lockport, Illinois, but give them a call first at 815-838-8130. Their website is richesyamaha.com. Pick up your copy of the Team Chicago History Package. If you want to learn everything there is to know about motorcycles, there's nothing like going to a swap meet. Here's a few dates coming up. April 26th, Woodstock, Illinois, McHenry County Fair. I will be there. Stop by and say hello. Then there's Princeton, Illinois, Monroe, Wisconsin, Morris, Illinois. Remember, walneckswap.com, walneckswap.com.